What is up? What is up, YouTube? How y'all doing? I didn't know. Where my phone at? I didn't know Monday is a holiday. I didn't know that. Monday is a holiday, y'all. So maybe I'm tripping. Yep. Memorial Day is Monday. Today is Sunday. It's Sunday morning. So Tuesday morning, I will be going up to the courthouse, baby, because Monday is a holiday. I heard somebody was talking about the trial and stuff, and they said, well, they're going to pick back up Tuesday. And I was like, what? Why Tuesday? What happened Monday? Long story short, yeah. Monday's a holiday. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. 9 wild moments from Kid Cudi, P. Diddy trial testimony. What the I got that from somebody, man. He said that shit made me laugh. Anyway, y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, thumbs up, and let's check this bad boy.
Rapper Kid Cudi leaves federal court after taking the stand at Diddy Combs' racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking trial and tells the jury about his Porsche being torched while he was dating Cassie.
This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me.
I look at 9 moments from the rapper's testimony and what had the courtroom laughing.
Kid Cudi came up that joint like, man.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Kid Cudi, of course, is a rapper. He's an actor and a producer. But this week, he added Diddy trial witness to his list of titles. His legal name is actually 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦. And he walked into court, raised his right hand, and as any other witness would, swore to tell the truth. You might be thinking, I thought this trial was about sex trafficking and prostitution. Well, it is. But Sean Combs also faces a racketeering conspiracy charge, or RICO. He's accused of using his businesses to carry out and cover up crimes. And Kid Cudi, the government alleges, is the victim of one of those crimes, specifically arson. Combs, for his part, has pleaded not guilty to all of the charges, and he maintains his relationship with ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura was one that involved domestic violence, but not sex trafficking. And Cassie is the connection between Combs and Kid Cudi. Back in 2011, Kid Cudi, or 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦, testified that he and Cassie were dating. He believed that she was broken up with Sean Combs at the time, but that may not have been completely true. Kid Cudi took the stand wearing jeans, a leather jacket, and a white shirt, and he told the jury about that night in December 2011 when Cassie called him very upset. Ms. Cudi testified, well, I got a call from Cassie around 5:30 or 6 a.m., and she told me that Sean Combs had found out about us. I was really confused, but she asked me to pick her up. She sounded really stressed on the phone, nervous, scared, so I went to go pick her up, and yeah. Ms. Cudi went on to explain why he was confused. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson asked, you testified that Ms. Ventura told you Mr. Combs found out about us. What was your understanding of what Mr. Combs had found out? Ms. Cudi answered that me and her were dating. Johnson asked, and you also testified that you were confused when you heard that. Ms. Cudi answered yes. Johnson asked, why were you confused? Ms. Cudi answered, because I didn't think she was dealing with him. Johnson asked, and you mentioned that you went to pick her up. Is that right? Ms. Cudi answered, yes. Ms. Cudi testified that he drove Ventura to a hotel in Los Angeles about 15 minutes from his home. Then he got a call from a woman who was a friend of Cassie's and an assistant of Sean Combs. Her name was Capricorn Clark. Ms. Cudi said, Clark said, that Sean Combs and an affiliate were in my house, and she was in a car. She was forced to go along with them over there. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Ms. Capricorn say about where she was at the moment? Ms. Cudi said, she was in a car outside of my house waiting for them. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Capricorn say about where Mr. Combs was at that moment? Attorney Brian Steele objected, and it was overruled. Ms. Cudi testified, in my house. Johnson asked, after you spoke to Capricorn, what did you do next? Ms. Cudi answered, I got in my car and went to my house. Johnson asked, that phone call? No. Johnson followed up, did anyone go with you when you went to your house after that phone call? Miss Cudi answered, no. Miss Cudi said he drove to his house. It was a 15-minute drive or so from the hotel, as I mentioned, where he was with Cassie. And on the way, he called Sean Combs. He had his number from years ago. He described what he said to Sean Combs. Miss Cudi testified, I'm going to be very candid. I said, mother effer, you in my house? And he was like, what's up? I was like, mother effer, are you in my house? And he said, I just want to talk to you. I was like, I am on my way over right now. He was like, I'm here. Miss Cudi said that Combs' voice was calm. He drove to his house, which he said had security cameras, but they weren't working that night. When he arrived, Miss Cudi said the cameras appeared as if they had been moved to the side. Miss Cudi said, some gifts that I bought for my family were opened, some stuff I got from Chanel, and then my dog was locked up in my bathroom. Our content shows just how important personal safety is, and that is especially true when it comes to protecting your privacy online. Yells by removing information you don't buy at incognito.com/crimefix for 60% off 6:30 or 7 in the morning. The questioning asked, how did you learn that your car caught fire?
Man, this thing is... Hold up, y'all. Wait a minute. Gotta skip the ads.
For 60% off an annual incognito plan. Miss Cudi said he filed a police report about the break-in, and then he spent Christmas with Cassie at her parents' home in Connecticut. Johnson asked, directing your attention to January of 2012, did there come a time when you learned that your car had caught on fire? Miss Cudi answered yes. Johnson asked, how did you learn that your car caught fire? Miss Cudi answered, my dog's babysitter called me in the morning. Now keep in mind, it's 6:30 or 7 in the morning. The questioning continued. Johnson asked, what was your understanding of where your dog's babysitter was located when she called you? Miss Cudi said, at my house. Johnson asked, was it your understanding that your dog's babysitter was telling you what was happening in real time? Miss Cudi answered yes. Johnson asked, and what did your dog's babysitter say to you about what she saw? Miss Cudi answered, she told me my car was on fire. Johnson asked, was anyone else present at your house at the time? Miss Cudi said no. Johnson asked, where were you? Miss Cudi said, I was at my ex-girlfriend's sister's house. Johnson asked, approximately how far away from your house were you? Miss Cudi answered, like 45 minutes or something like that. Johnson asked, where was your car at the time your babysitter called? Miss Cudi said, in the driveway. Miss Cudi said his friend Chip took photos of the Porsche as he drove back to his house. The photos show a hole in the top of the Porsche. There's also damage to the driver's seat from where the Molotov cocktail left burn marks, and there's damage to the door. The car was so badly damaged, Miss Cudi said it couldn't be repaired. When he arrived at his house, he said the bottle from the Molotov cocktail was on the ground. It had been in the driver's seat. When asked his reaction to his car being torched, it was very simple. Miss Cudi said, he said, what the F word? Miss Cudi said the cops were at his house and he filed a police report, and it was his understanding this was no accident. A couple of days later, Miss Cudi said he had his manager set up a meeting with Combs through his head of security, D-Rock, at the Soho house. Miss Cudi testified, I walked in and I met D-Rock. He was escorting me into the room, and then I got to the room. It was one wall was all windows, and Sean Combs was standing there staring out the window with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. Yeah, It was just me and him in the room. No security, nobody. Miss Cudi said, we discussed, pretty much the whole story about how me and Cassie first started to date to what it was to how it ended. And his whole point was, we were homies, that was my girl. I let him know that, she told me they were broken up, and I took her word for it. Yeah. Johnson asked, what was Mr. Combs' demeanor during this meeting? Miss Cudi said, very calm. He kept offering me water. He offered me water twice. Johnson asked, what was your reaction to his demeanor? Miss Cudi said it was very off-putting. It was weird that he was so calm. Miss Cudi said Cassie then showed up, and he testified he was upset to find out that she had gone back to Sean Combs. He told the jury, quote, she pretty much kind of explained that we fell in love and things just happened and, Miss Cudi testified, yeah, we stood up, shook hands, and as I was shaking his hand, I said, what are we going to do about my car? I made sure to ask him right when our hands were clasped together, where he couldn't run away and I could look at him square in his eyes. And he looked right back at me, very cold stare, and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Okay." I took my hand from his and he said, "Wait, I thought we were cool. Is there a problem?" I was like, "You said you didn't burn my car, right? You said that's your word." He said, "Yeah." I was like, "That's it." When asked again, Miss Cudi said Combs's tone of voice was very calm. And after that day, there were no more break-ins at his home and no more car fires. A couple of years later, Miss Cudi said he saw Combs at the Soho house again, this time with his daughter. He said Combs said, "Man, I just want to apologize for everything and all of the BS." There were no more conflicts with Sean Combs, and Miss Cudi said he made peace with it. Then came the cross-examination by attorney Brian Steele, who represented Young Thug. Steele set out to score some points, and he did. Steele questioned Miss Cudi about whether he knew that fingerprints and DNA samples were taken from his Porsche back in 2012. Miss Cudi said he called police about the incident a few times, but was not aware that DNA from the car came back as a female sample. Steele also pointed out that there were no sightings of Sean Combs around Miss Cudi's property. Then the conversation turned to Cassie Ventura. Miss Cudi confirmed that Cassie ended their relationship in January of 2012, and he was confused because they had been talking and seeing each other for about a year. And he said at that time he wasn't aware that Cassie was seeing Sean Combs at the same time. Steele asked, "Ms. Ventura was not frank with you, true?" Miss Cudi answered, "True." Steele asked, "She played you. That was your words, right?" Miss Cudi said yes. Steele asked, "You had no clue. When she played you, she was convincing about that, right?" Miss Cudi said, "No clue." Steele asked, "You were with her a lot, right?" Miss Cudi said, "Mm-hmm." Steele asked, "True?" Miss Cudi said yes. Steele then pointed out that Sean Combs actually asked Miss Cudi in 2011 to do a song with Cassie Ventura. That was how the two met. Steele asked, "You were in a studio doing your art with Ms. Ventura, that true?" Miss Cudi said yes. Steele asked, "And that's how you guys really became close, right?" Miss Cudi said, "We were cool before." Miss Cudi asked, "And this didn't hurt your relationship, right?" "It was nice. You enjoyed the time with her, true?" Miss Cudi said, "Yeah, it was truly just friends at that time." Steele asked, "Mr. Combs wasn't around you and Ms. Ventura when you were with her, right?" Miss Cudi said no. Steele asked, "And she wasn't getting all these text messages from him to your knowledge when you were with her, right?" Miss Cudi said, "Not to my knowledge." Steele also confirmed with Miss Cudi that Cassie told him that Combs was physically abusive toward her, but she never told Miss Cudi that Sean Combs sexually abused her. Steele also got Miss Cudi to say that Cassie Ventura was living two different lives when she was spending time with him. And during that meeting with Combs at the Soho house in 2012, after his car was torched, he said Combs was gracious, made no threats, and had no weapons on him. During redirect, Emily Johnson used Miss Cudi to remind the jury about incidents where Cassie and Capricorn Clark confided in him about Combs's volatile behavior. Toward the end, Miss Cudi admitted that it was that behavior that made him walk away from his relationship with Cassie. Johnson asked, "Why did your relationship with Ms. Ventura end despite having feelings for her?" Miss Cudi said the drama, it was just getting out of hand and kind of wanted to give her some space. Johnson said, "What drama are you talking about?" Miss Cudi said the break-in and everything. Johnson asked, "Why did you want to give it space?" Miss Cudi said, "Just feels like things were just getting out of hand, and for my safety, for her safety, I just thought." Miss Cudi's responses prompts an objection in a sidebar where the parties go back and forth about whether or not it's proper for the jury to hear the rest of what he was going to say. Steele told Judge at a sidebar that he was going to move for a mistrial because he expected Miss Cudi to answer that Combs was violent, and he had been told that Combs had had other people killed. The defense is adamant it's highly prejudicial against Combs, but the government says they're just trying to get him to talk about his safety concerns that he had at the end of his relationship with Cassie. Ultimately, the judge decided that Emily Johnson must move on from this type of questioning. The testimony of Kid Cudi ended with him telling the jury that he believed that Sean Combs lied to him.
So what was it like in the courtroom when Kid Cudi was testifying? Elizabeth Milner with Law and Crime was there. So Elizabeth, were the jurors did it seem like they knew who Kid Cudi was when he walked in and took the stand?
Yeah, it didn't seem that way from what I could tell, but I feel like from everyone in the gallery, they were there and they were ready to see Kid Cudi, see him walk inside that courtroom. It felt kind of like a movie moment a little bit where everyone's turned around and then all of a sudden he just walks across to the witness stand, takes his seat, does the oath, all that. But, him coming in, he was super casual. He had a motorcycle jacket. He had a white t-shirt on. Even like from other witnesses that I could see testifying, they're always in suits. They're in more professional type of wear and that thing. But as far as Kid Cudi is concerned, yeah, motorcycle jacket, his earring, his jeans, just walked up to the stand pretty casual. I didn't see the cigarette smoking or anything like that. But, when he was on the stand, he was very casual even throughout. He just seemed like he was just there to kind of speak his piece, say his part, and then just kind of move on from it. And he seemed like he was just kind of just ready to get this part over with for sure.
And he seemed like he was a little bit of a charmer, actually, on the stand. And I'm getting that just from the transcripts, because it sounds like he was just authentic. He was just him. And there were some laughs, from what I understand, in the courtroom from some of his testimony, even though this is not a laughing matter. Tell me what happened with the laughing.
Yeah, so he had some interesting one-liners when he was on the stand testifying, a lot during the direct. So one of the big things was just his reaction to his car being blown up with a Molotov cocktail. And
what the F?
Yeah. They were AUSA Emily Johnson was just like, what was your reaction to everything? And then he just candidly said, what the F? Obviously, I can't say, the real way he
I think we would all have that reaction if our car was blown up.
Exactly. And so he was very just real while he was on the stand. And to your point, Anjanette, very authentic, because when he didn't understand a question, he would be like, say what now? And just like very casual in tone, even though he's testifying in federal court and all of that stuff. And then another big moment where he got kind of a big reaction from the gallery and some of the jurors too, was just him explaining just the meeting at Soho House where him, Diddy, and Cassie all met together to kind of hash everything out. He explained that when he was first brought in, he was brought in by Diddy's security guard, D-Rock. And then he said Diddy was just sitting over there in that portion of Soho House in a room over there, just looking like a Marvel supervillain. Those were literally his words inside the courtroom. And a lot of people just kind of laughed at this moment. I don't think Diddy necessarily found this particularly funny, but he definitely got a big reaction from everyone in the courtroom.
But that paints a picture, because I think we can all kind of see that, like a Bruce Wayne moment where you walk it, you envision that. You walk into a room and there's a big window and there's a guy standing there. We can kind of it paints a picture of what he encountered. It sounds nuts. And then he basically told the jury that he thought Sean Combs was lying, which I found amazing that was allowed in. He thought Sean Combs was lying when Sean Combs was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Your car got blown up. What do you mean?
Yep. Diddy lying about everything. Yeah, I was surprised that part got in, because that was kind of more towards the end of his testimony where he kind of got that little portion in. But he seemed like he knew who was behind this the entire time. When he was asked whether it was accidental or intentional, he was firm in believing that this was an intentional act. I know kind of under the cross-examination, they were kind of trying to frame it as maybe someone else did it. There were female fingerprints found on the Molotov cocktail. Exactly. But he seemed firm that Sean Combs, aka Diddy, might have been the one responsible for what had happened to his car, which was never able to be repaired after the fact.
And of course, there were never criminal charges filed. So we have to be clear on that. But Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into the courtroom where we can't have cameras. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Kid Cudi didn't say anything as he left federal court. After testifying, he got into a Cadillac Escalade and left. But he posted a video on X.
Hey guys, so I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support, and I just want to say thank you so much, man. People have been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. You guys are the best. I love y'all. This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me. And yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love. Go stream Neverland.
So let's talk about Kid Cudi's testimony. I want to bring in 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦. He's an entertainment lawyer, also a former federal prosecutor. So he knows all about this stuff. So obviously they're bringing Kid Cudi and 𝗗𝗎𝗓 to talk about this thing about the car and the car being blown up or set on, the Molotov cocktail. It wasn't really blown up, but there was obvious damage to the vehicle. And this plays into the RICO charge, the racketeering conspiracy charge. Does this really, in your opinion, really back up that charge?
I think it does, Anjanette. Maybe this is the former federal prosecutor in me. This is why. Cassie testified that Combs made the threat directly to blow up the car. Maybe we expected a kind of a mob-style explosion, but arson doesn't require that, right? A Molotov cocktail in your Porsche that burns it is enough. And the reason I like this is obviously the defense got out that, it wasn't definitively tied to Combs and that the DNA in the vehicle was a female's. Right. But I think there's enough circumstantial evidence, given the threat and the timing, for the jurors to believe that it was Combs. And I like these types of predicate acts because it allows the prosecution to somehow potentially get to racketeering without proving sex trafficking. I think they've proven sex trafficking, but let's say the jurors think that this was all consensual, the freak-offs. You have arson, you have extortion, you have blackmail, you have kidnapping, you have other potential activities that can get you that pattern of racketeering without sex trafficking.
So I want to break that down a little bit, and we're going to get to that, but you made two good points there. On cross-examination, Brian Steele, got out that, there was female DNA that they tested for in the car. So, we don't know that Combs's DNA was ever linked to this. He's accused of running a criminal enterprise. So it's not like he would have gotten his hands dirty and done this himself. He would have had somebody else do it possibly. But, they didn't explicitly tie it to Combs, but Combs apparently said a couple years later, hey man, I'm sorry about all that. That was my girl. I thought we were homies. So he kind of apologized for it. But then Brian Steele also brings up this whole thing about, Cassie playing Kid Cudi. He felt that she had played him. And that I think could be very powerful for the jury. Don't you think that could be powerful for the jury? Because it goes to possibly, as you brought up, you don't think they've proven sex trafficking, but it could go to this whole thing about Cassie, the defense argument that she's an opportunist.
Yeah, I think the government has proven sex trafficking, but I know people watching, some of them don't believe they have. But you're right, Anjanette. Brian Steele's one of the best. I mean, obviously, we covered him for many months on the Young Thug case. It seems like a never-ending trial. And so the fact that he was added to the team to cross-examine this witness really shows how good he is. I agree with you. I thought he got three very good points out. The first is with respect to the arson, that really there's no direct evidence tying Diddy to it. Maybe the threat and the apology years later. I also thought that there was good evidence that Cassie might have talked about physical harm that she suffered by Combs, but she never mentioned any sexual assault or sexual abuse. That was a very important point that came out during cross. And then, like you said, the fact that Cassie was playing both of them, I thought that was a good point that came out as well. Maybe she wasn't the victim that she's saying that she is. Again, not saying I believe it, but what you see the defense trying to do here is build Cassie up. And this was a theme even in their opening statement, when Tenny Garagos got up there and said that this is a strong, capable woman who was making her own decisions, and she chose to participate in these freak-offs. And she's the one who broke up with Combs years later. She was dating other guys at the same time. So I understand and I like what the defense is doing, and I think that is really part of their strategy in this case.
So let's go now to the RICO charge, because when I think of RICO charges and racketeering conspiracy, it's rooted in, and it came from, the mob. And I think of the mob setting up businesses, the rackets, to commit crimes, or they're running businesses to cover up crimes. This seems a little bit different to me because, yes, Sean Combs was an entrepreneur setting up Bad Boy Records and running, fashion labels, all these different things. And it seems like the government is saying he used his business to cover up and commit crimes. So it seems almost kind of like a little bit different in that respect. But you're saying you think they will get to the racketeering charge, because right now I'm seeing little pieces of that. I'm seeing, obviously we saw the extortion with Regina Ventura, Cassie's mother. Now we're seeing a possible arson. It sounds like it probably was tied to Sean Combs, but not definitively. You think they will get there, that they'll be proving that Bad Boy Records was a criminal enterprise?
I do. And like you said, Anjanette, historically racketeering was used for the mob or cartels or criminal street gangs, right? You actually have a criminal enterprise. And that's how it was used for decades since the law was passed in the 70s. And obviously states ended up passing their own version of RICO statutes. But we have seen a tremendous growth in use of RICO and racketeering statutes. Obviously, we saw it in other sex trafficking cases, R. Kelly and Nexium. We even saw it in the Donald Trump Fulton County case in Georgia. So this is a great tool for prosecutors. I'm not saying that it's appropriate, but prosecutors love it because with RICO, you bring in a lot of people and you bring in a lot of evidence into the case. You can have RICO acts that are state charges. You can have RICO acts that are outside the statute of limitations. And by bringing everyone in, you can really lean on them if you're a prosecutor. You can get people to flip and cooperate. Otherwise, they could be charged with a RICO conspiracy, even if they were just buying, baby oil and lube and condoms for the freak-offs and cleaning them up afterwards, right? Even though they didn't participate in the sex acts, if they were co-conspirators or they're aiding and abetting, they could be charged substantively in a RICO conspiracy. But let's just take a step back and go through some of these elements. Like you said, the criminal enterprise, it doesn't have to be a rigid organization. Right? Under the law, it's just a loose association of two or more people. And if there's an agreement to do something unlawful, those are elements of a RICO conspiracy.
Very interesting. Because a lot of people are saying, this is thin. This may be overcharged. But it sounds like you don't think that.
Well, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I'm a current victims lawyer, so I might be a little bit biased, but I think there is enough here. You have Sean Diddy Combs, the head of this organization, right? And what he does, whether it's extorting Regina Ventura, he has his people do it for him, right? Whether it's blowing up the car, even the threat that he made. Regina Ventura said that Combs said that it wouldn't be him personally who hurts Cassie and Kid Cudi. It would be someone else. And in fact, Combs would be out of the country at the time. So he's not doing this himself. Look, there's a reason you have Kaplan and James, the personal assistants, say that, look, if I was buying, food or flights, I would charge the company card. But if I was doing something for the freak-offs, I would be paying cash. And, Combs had his infamous Louis Vuitton bag with thousands and thousands of dollars in cash. Look, there's nothing wrong with paying cash, but when you're using your company card for certain things and you're paying cash for drugs and sex workers and, lube and condoms, I mean, the jurors aren't stupid. That is illegal activity. That's why you're paying the cash, and that's why you're having your underlings do it.
Let's go back to Kid Cudi now. So who do you think scored more points with Kid Cudi, the government or the defense? Because it seemed to me that they both scored points with him.
I thought it was a good cross-examination, but I really like him as a witness for the government. I think it's a very strong way to end before a 4-day weekend, because you got two things out of it. Obviously a jealous Combs who broke into his house, right? I mean, that's pretty crazy. And it just shows how dangerous he may be. And then you have this Molotov cocktail in his car. So, and really the way it ended, obviously Kid Cudi said he got played, but he also said that he broke up with Cassie because he was worried for his own safety and he didn't want to deal with the drama. This just goes to show that sort of pattern of violence and really paints a picture of a dangerous individual for the jury.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it. They liked him in that courtroom. The jury apparently liked him. A lot of people liked him. It sounds like he made a really good witness. So he even posted on X about it afterwards. So, it is what it is, right? I mean, I wish we had cameras in there, but all we can do is look at the testimony and then talk about it afterwards. Neema Rahmani, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anjanette. I'm sure we'll talk real soon.
I think we will. Thank you. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.
I thought that was Law and Crime Fix. Law and Crime. It says Law and Crime. Law and Crime Fix. Damn, they worse than me, man. I got all kinds of names and different things. I see one that I want to do. Look here, I'm going to get on up out of here. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Hey, y'all tell them Uncle Mike told you so. Shout out to Kid Cudi, man. One thing I want to say, when he said he was played. I don't know, man. I think Cassie's been jumping in and out and doing all kinds of stuff. Maybe because of the drugs. I don't know, man. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Tell them Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out.